Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 242 based on novel. So let's start. The flying ship was like a small boat on a stormy sea, getting smacked left and right by the raging waves. Suddenly, the windows broke apart and flew out of the ship. Whoosh! The floor was splintered into pieces and flew away as well. Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu hurriedly hugged the pillar in the cabin, only to hear creaking sounds coming from it. "Hug my waist!" Qin Mu shouted. Ling Yuxiu didn't hear him clearly. "What? Hug my waist?" Ling Yuxiu finally heard it this time. She let go of the pillar and hugged his waist. Qin Mu felt two soft lumps on his back, and they were very comfortable. However, he didn't have time to think about what was soft. He immediately executed Heaven and Earth Mudra skill. Revolving Heaven, turning Earth, and unchanging heart. When this Mudra skill was executed, violent wave motions were instantly triggered by his palm and started to swirl around him. Qin Mu grunted as his arms almost snapped from the pressure that was coming from his hands. However, he could only continue to hold on. Suddenly, the pillar that was holding up the cabin snapped and the entire building flew up, falling into the starry sky. Ling Yuxiu was shocked, and she hurriedly hugged Qin Mu as tightly as possible. Qin Mu exhausted all his strength to execute Heaven and Earth Mudra, and he was withstanding stronger and stronger wave motions. The flying ship was still tumbling furiously around, and the phoenix head on the bow had already broken off. The deck boards were rattling and splintering as they flew out continuously. The entire ship was worn out. Bang! The door to the ship's hold shattered apart, and Pan Gongtso's startled cry came from inside. Ling Yuxiu heard this voice and thought to herself, Pan Gongtso is truly quick-witted to have hidden in the ship's hold earlier. Did he foresee the incoming danger? Pan Gongtso was tumbling around, and he crashed here and there. The wave motions stopped all of a sudden, but the ship was still spiraling continuously, not knowing when it would finally stop. Qin Mu's hands crossed, transforming his mudra into determining 5 elements of earth, water, wind, fire. After a moment, the flying ship gradually stopped. His face was flushed, and his skin had nearly cracked apart, but he finally stabilized the ship. Qin Mu dispersed Heaven and Earth Mudra. His legs were still shaking, and his hands were cramped and couldn't lift them up. His waist seemed like they were about to split apart, and it was so painful that he was sucking in cold breath. The flying ship was wrecked. The 3 pairs of wings had already broken off from the 6 pairs. The phoenix head was also severed, and the mast had collapsed. The sails were full of many holes, and the entire cabin was gone. Air was leaking out from all over the ship, and even the air in the flying ship was depleting quickly. It must be because the vital chi shroud on this flying ship had been broken. Qin Mu struggled to take a step. He headed straight for the vital chi shroud of the flying ship and mended the tear. After a while, he landed back and sighed in relief. It should be able to last us for a while. I wonder how first ancestor is. Sister Xiao, you can let go already. Ling Yuxiu's face flushed, and she quickly let go of his waist. When Qin Mu was running to mend the vital chi shroud, she was still hugging him, and this made Qin Mu run 1 round while dragging her along. Qin Mu endured the soreness on his body while checking their location and direction. He saw that they were in an unfamiliar starry sky that had no distinction between up and down. There were no 6 directions, and when he looked into the distance, he couldn't see the battlefield of First Ancestor and Great Sun Sovereign. Not only could he not see the battlefield, but even that sun that the flying ship had revolved around also couldn't be seen as well. Qin Mu felt chill creeping in his heart. He hurriedly grabbed the wisdom beads on his neck and rubbed them twice. He composed himself and said, it's best for us not to walk around randomly. We should stay on the spot and wait for First Ancestor, or Kai Shi to find their way here. Ling Yuxiu looked around and muttered, what if they can't find us? What if they can't find us? Our air is going to be depleted before that happens. Qin Mu took out a bunch of medicinal seeds, and some soil from his Dao Tai sack. He scattered the seeds on the soil and executed Earth Eon creation technique. He saw that these medicinal seeds sprouted and grew rapidly. Soon, there was a garden on the remaining deck of the ship. He stretched out his 5 fingers and a ball of flames flew up from his hands. It was a small sun that was formed by qi of pure yang, and he used this sunlight to shine on these lush green herbs. His qi of pure yang was much denser than others, because he had traveled 40,000 years back in time to meet that god that had died in High Emperor era. He had gifted him 2 trails of divine qi, one was pure yang, and the other was pure yin. After creating a small sun, Qin Mu did the same thing with his other hand to create a small moon. He said in a low voice, I hope this can last for some time. Pan Gong so crawled out from the ship's hold and saw everything. When he noticed Qin Mu had actually stored a pile of soil in his Dao Tai sack, he cried out, Cult Master Qin, you even have soil in your Dao Tai sack. I've prepared these in case of emergencies. Qin Mu released the small sun and small moon from his palms, and they orbited around the herb garden. I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to grow herbs if I'm in a place like a desert, so I prepared some. I didn't expect that I'll use them here. Pan Gong so had a weird expression and he sighed. Now I know why I can't kill you. Qin Mu endured the pain on his body and said with a smile, you have never defeated me before, much less kill me. Pan Gong so's face turned black, and he stopped talking. He didn't dare to make a move as well. Qin Mu pondered for a moment, 3 of us depleting the air here is not slower than 2 of us depleting the air. So, Pan Gong so's expression changed drastically. He was about to escape when the ship suddenly sank. All of them frantically looked behind, and their faces paled at what they saw. Great Sun Sovereign, who was filled with holes, was standing on the stern of the ship. One of his wings was broken, and his leg was also crippled. He was covered in injuries and 2 out of his 3 eyes seemed to be blind. All in all, he looked miserable. Cough, cough. He coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of flaming phlegm, which burned continuously even after landing on the ground. This part of the divine ship was burnt. What a strong founding emperor divine art. Great Sun Sovereign grimaced in pain and sucked in a deep breath. The blood flowed continuously from his body. He chuckled. He almost took my life, but only almost. What did I say? Oh right, you are already dead. His remaining eye opened and there seemed to be a huge sun brewing divine fire in it. Qin Mu immediately grabbed the small case and opened it without any warning. 2 streaks of blood light beamed towards Great Sun Sovereign and slashed down at him. Great Sun Sovereign's tattered wings suddenly unfurled and covered his body, and the 2 streaks of light swirled around him. Countless feathers were slashed off, and blood splattered out. Ouch! Great Sun Sovereign's astonished and furious voice came from inside the feathers. Qin Mu's heart turned cold. God Execution mysterious knife couldn't slay this Great Sun Sovereign, who was already heavily injured. What made him feel even more despair was that if Great Sun Sovereign could appear here, was First Ancestor Human Emperor already dead? Those 2 streaks of light turned back without achieving their goal, and the case clasped shut. Without God Execution stage, a mere God Execution mysterious knife can't do anything to me. Great Sun Sovereign spread his wings, and blood flowed down from them. His blood landed on the deck and instantly ignited it. After a short while, the stern of the ship was covered entirely with divine fire. The air rapidly depleted, and not long after, Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu found it hard to breathe. Great Sun Sovereign walked over while panting heavily. The head of an emperor's throne strong practitioner still needs the god execution stage to be able to execute its flawless killing power. It's a pity you didn't receive that mountain. Now, you guys can die. Suddenly, the flying ship jolted, and Great Sun Sovereign's body froze. His head twisted back, and he saw a slender figure bathed in flames walking over with a divine sword in his hand. The tip of the sword was pointing diagonally at the deck. The divine fire was instantly extinguished when the tip of the sword brushed past it. Only pools of golden blood remained. You're still not dead. Great Sun Sovereign's remaining eye revealed a look of terror as he slowly retreated. He suddenly flapped his wings and soared into the sky. The pain from his wings made him shriek miserably as he flew away like a beam of light. First Ancestor Human Emperor's face was pale. He stretched out his hands to clap and said in a low voice, "Green vitality creation." The ship suddenly became like a withered tree that was welcoming spring again. The wooden structure of the ship rapidly sprouted with tree seedlings, and huge and towering trees grew furiously in the blink of an eye. It was like a primitive forest. The flying ship transformed into a tiny planet, growing trees in all directions as it floated alone in the starry sky. First Ancestor Human Emperor walked before Qin Mu and the rest, and he said indifferently, "Dao friend Kai Shi, until when are you going to hide? If you have made your move earlier, we could have fought Great Sun Sovereign to his death and not let him escape." Kai Shi suddenly appeared on the bow of the ship while dragging his heaven-suppressing floor. His 3 faces and 6 eyes stared at First Ancestor. "I'm also heavily injured. I could have fought him to the death, but I wouldn't survive as well. Since he has already escaped, he won't dare to return anymore. He won't be able to catch up to us if he returns as well. We have already achieved our goal, so there's no need to risk our lives. How are your injuries?" His tone seemed to be slightly concerned, and Qin Mu felt fear. Kai Shi's question at this time is off. He's definitely up to no good. As long as he kills First Ancestor, Crimson Light taking over eternal peace would be extremely easy. Kai Shi's intention to kill has been roused. The reason why Kai Shi was willing to ally with eternal peace was because of First Ancestor Human Emperor's existence. He had the ability that eternal peace had to ally with Crimson Light God Dynasty. If First Ancestor were to die, there would be no need for an alliance. He could just take over eternal peace. First Ancestor Human Emperor said, "How heavy my injuries are. You will know if you try." Qin Mu grabbed the small case and said with a smile, "Senior Kai Shi, we are still in an alliance after all. It wouldn't be good to fall out." Kai Shi stared at the small case in his hands, and he suddenly smiled. "That's right. I'm just concerned, and I mean no harm. Disciple, come over here." Pangong Tso walked closer to him and said in a hushed voice, "First Ancestor Human Emperor is heavily injured. If we can seize God Execution Mysterious Knife, we will be able to do anything to them." Kai Shi shook his head. "I know his injuries are very severe, but my injuries aren't light as well. I don't have any confidence to deal with God Execution Mysterious Knife. Let's wait for my body to recover first." First Ancestor Human Emperor fell into a sitting position, and Qin Mu examined his injuries, frowning slightly as he did. The injuries on First Ancestor's body were extremely serious. He was like a porcelain vase that was about to crack completely. These injuries were from 3 forms of overturning heaven. 3 forms of overturning heaven was a divine art with a strong sense of self-destruction. He didn't know how many moves First Ancestor had executed, but the injuries on his corporeal body and primordial spirit were all severe. Even his divine treasures and the celestial palace at the end of his divine bridge had numerous cracks. The most serious injury that Qin Mu had treated was still Imperial Preceptor's injuries from the battle with Jade Sovereign. However, Imperial Preceptor didn't have his celestial palace damaged at that time. Now, First Ancestor Human Emperor had injuries all the way to his celestial palace. Sending healing energy to the celestial palace to treat its injuries was still something that Qin Mu had not yet learned and experienced. I can treat as I go. I need to treat his other injuries first. After that, I'll think of a way to treat his celestial palace's injuries. Qin Mu handed the small case to Ling Yuxiu and taught her how to activate and release God Execution Mysterious Knife. He instructed in a low voice, "If Kaishi walks over, open the case right away. Don't hesitate." Ling Yuxiu nodded slowly. She hugged the case while reviewing Qin Mu's instructions in her mind. Qin Mu took in a deep breath, and he immediately started to gather the herbs to refine the spirit pills. How should I treat a celestial palace? Qin Mu treated First Ancestor's corporeal body, and it took 2 days to nurse his divine treasures. The spirit herbs that he lacked were planted by him straight away. Even though First Ancestor's corporeal body had healed, his complexion was becoming worse and worse, and he would frequently fall into a coma. This was because the injuries on his primordial spirit and celestial palace were too severe, and Qin Mu was utterly helpless when it comes to them. Apothecary had imparted medical knowledge and expertise to him. He could treat strong practitioners that were on Divine Bridge Realm, and those that had not yet reached Southern Heavenly Gate. However, for injuries on the Celestial Palace of God Realm, it was also an unknown territory for apothecary. Moreover, the Silver Needle couldn't move any further to reach the Celestial Palace, so how to guide the medicinal energy was also a huge problem. Steaming or boiling bath wasn't possible, as well as they couldn't seep into the Celestial Palace. As for spirit pills and miraculous medicines, their medicinal energy couldn't reach the Celestial Palace directly. First Ancestor's primordial spirit was no longer in his spirit embryo divine treasure. It was located in the Celestial Palace. Taking a rough guess, his cultivation had most likely reached the realm of God Execution stage, or Jade Capital. However, to know his exact cultivation, Qin Mu would need to enter First Ancestor Human's Celestial Palace. First Ancestor Human Emperor's state was already terrible, and he could no longer release his primordial spirit for Qin Mu to treat. For this reason, he could only enter the Celestial Palace if he wanted to treat him. I can still transform into a shadow to enter his divine treasures and push the medicine energy, but I can't enter Southern Heavenly Gate. Qin Mu quickly walked in circles around First Ancestor while calculating carefully. Southern Heavenly Gate was an important pass. It was a pass for a god to become a true god, and one's primordial spirit needed to have the power of a true god to be able to enter. Even though great educational heavenly devil scriptures had all kinds of strange techniques, no matter how intricate the technique was, they had to abide by a basic principle, and that was the cultivation realm. Qin Mu's cultivation was far from being able to enter Southern Heavenly Gate. First Ancestor Human Emperor fainted again, and it wasn't known what dream he was having. He just kept murmuring delirious words. I've sinned. I won't escape anymore. I've come here to redeem myself. I'm sorry. Qin Mu frowned. This way of losing consciousness was extremely bad, as this meant First Ancestor's primordial spirit was already starting to disintegrate. Treatment could no longer be delayed. He had to send the medicinal energy to the Celestial Palace as soon as possible. I can't cross Southern Heavenly Gate, but there's something that can go through it. Qin Mu quickly refined the pills for treating injuries of the primordial spirit. He made a large number of pills, then stored all of them. He said to Ling Yuxiu, Sister Xiu, I'm going to treat First Ancestor's injuries. Stay here and be careful of Kaishi. Ling Yuxiu nodded her head while holding the small case nervously. Qin Mu's body suddenly transformed into a shadow, and tunneled into the heart of First Ancestor's brows. He flew past Spirit Embryo, 5 Elements, and 6 Directions Divine Treasure. After a long time, he finally reached Divine Bridge Divine Treasure. He stood on First Ancestor Human Emperor's Divine Bridge, and saw that the light in this place was like a rainbow. Meanwhile, below the Divine Bridge, the Divine Treasures were interlocking and overlapping one another. The Dark Yudu was below the 6 Directions, and over there was Life and Death Divine Treasure. Qin Mu composed himself and headed to the place on the other end of the Divine Bridge. It was First Ancestor's Celestial Palace. While he was walking on the bridge, he couldn't help being stunned when he noticed that First Ancestor Human Emperor's Divine Bridge was completely intact and connected. It wasn't broken at all. The divine bridges of all divine arts practitioners in Eternal Peace Empire were broken. Even if one used secrets of Magpie Bridge and secrets of Mysterious Guide, there would still be a detached portion. That was why they had to use secrets of Divine Crossing to reach the other shore. On the other hand, First Ancestor Human Emperor's Divine Bridge was flawless. Indeed, he is the same as me. We're both born from Founding Emperor's bloodline. Our divine bridges aren't broken. Qin Mu walked forward, and after a long time, he arrived at the end of the Divine Bridge. Before him, Southern Heavenly Gate stood in the clouds. It was majestic and vast. This Southern Heavenly Gate was the door to the Celestial Palace, and the clouds around him formed all kinds of shapes: goat's horns, dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. There were also thunder marking, wind marking, and all sorts of strange markings. The door brought immense pressure to Qin Mu, and its weight was abnormal. If he entered this door, his primordial spirit wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure, it would break apart. Qin Mu composed himself. He took out his Daotai sack and rummaged through it, taking out 2 jade eyes. Moon Jade Eye and Sun Jade Eye. Qin Mu pondered for a moment while gritting his teeth. He executed 10,000 Spirit Nature technique, trying to grant intelligence to these 2 jade eyes. His attainments in 10,000 Spirit Nature technique weren't high as he had only skimmed through it. Because of this, he wasn't entirely sure if he could grant them intelligence. After waiting for a long time, his 2 jade eyes still didn't move. Qin Mu frowned slightly. He was about to execute 10,000 Spirit Nature technique again, when several pops sounded out from the jade eyes. After 2 popping sounds, 2 skinny legs grew out from the huge eyeballs, and 2 skinny arms grew out above the eyes after another couple of pops. One of the eyeballs stretched its back and cried out, "I'm dying from holding back my laughter. Brother, don't stifle yourself to death." Qin Mu was startled, and the Sun Jade Eye beside him burst into laughter. With 2 skinny arms holding its huge eyeball, he laughed until he rolled around on the ground. Moon Jade Eye also guffawed until it knelt on the ground, while its 2 skinny arms smacked wildly on the ground. He thought he didn't awaken us and planned to awaken us once more. The 2 huge eyeballs rolled around on the ground again. Qin Mu's face turned black. "All right, that's enough. Stop laughing. Laugh again, and I will smack you back into your original forms." The 2 jade eyes shut their mouths at once and stood up properly with their thin legs. "I feel our legs may be a little too skinny. I'm always afraid they would snap." Sun Jade Eye's huge eyeball looked down and tried to look at his legs, but how could he see? "Grk." Sun Jade Eye rolled out and tumbled over a dozen rounds before stopping. Moon Jade Eye was overjoyed at this sight, and laughed until he knelt again, while smacking the ground crazily. Qin Mu's palms trembled as he fiercely plucked off 2 strands of his beard. He shouted, "Have you 2 played enough? I summoned you 2 not to see you guys fool around." The 2 jade eyes immediately stood together, listening obediently. Qin Mu took out the spirit pills and miraculous medicine, that he had made and wrapped them in a huge sack. After you guys enter the door, just bring these spirit pills to first ancestors, primordial spirit, and catalyze these medicinal energy. He was about to hand these spirit pills to the two jade eyes, when he suddenly came to a realization. Looks like my 10,000 spirit nature technique isn't honed to perfection yet, so everything I summoned isn't too reliable. Back then, the chest I summoned always likes to collect bones and corpses. Then the sand dune giant that I summoned in the desert of High Emperor only knows how to roar. His speed is also extraordinarily slow. Would these two fellows be unreliable too? He pondered for a moment, then took out a spirit pill. Try catalyzing this medicinal energy. Moon Jade I suddenly shot a beam of light, and sliced the spirit pill into two halves. Before Qin Mu had the chance to react, a beam of flame shot out and transformed the two halves into dust. That's not the way to catalyze it. Qin Mu said patiently, you guys are pure yin and pure yang. Yin and yang must work together, so you should cooperate and catalyze the medicinal energy. Here, I'll show you. He took out a spirit pill and his eyes transformed. With his left eye that was pure yang and his right eye that was pure yin, two beams of light shone on the spirit pills at the same time. The medicinal energy of the spirit pills was instantly catalyzed, and fragrance assaulted his nostrils. Try again, and both of you do it at the same time. The two jade eyes turned the spirit pill into ashes again, and Qin Mu guided them patiently to control their strength. After several attempts, they only succeeded once. Qin Mu got them to test over a dozen more times, and the success rate gradually increased. He finally let out a sigh of relief. 40 to 50% success rate is acceptable. After you guys go in, catalyze the spirit pills one by one. Don't catalyze them all in one go. If you fail, all the work will be for nothing. Remember, don't fool around. You must catalyze the spirit pills, or else I'll beat you two back into your original forms. Moon Jade I carried the large sack on its back, and they both walked towards Southern Heavenly Gate. When they reached Southern Heavenly Gate, the two jade eyes paused for a moment before entering. Qin Mu couldn't help feeling nervous as he watched them. Suddenly, Sun Jade Eye said, walking is too slow. Let's just roll. Okay. Qin Mu widened his eyes and stared at the two jade eyes rolling into the depths of the celestial palace. He couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. Luckily, the sack didn't come apart. Unreliable, unreliable. Why are the fellows I summon always? Qin Mu froze. The two jade eyes rolled quickly, and even punched each other, to make the other one fly from time to time. Their happiness was beyond measure. Qin Mu's face turned black, and he kept wiping away his cold sweat. After some time, he couldn't see these two fellows anymore. He could only hear sounds of collision coming from the Southern Heavenly Gate, and sometimes, he could see a huge ball flying up then down. The other jade eye must have kicked it into the sky. After waiting for a long time, he saw that the two jade eyes had arrived at God execution stage. Fierce aura overflowed from it as a kneeling man was about to be beheaded. The knife automatically moved up and down, chopping down on the neck of that kneeling man over and over again. His neck was almost severed, and he would be killed very soon. The two eyeballs looked at each other. It should be here, right? Is this person seeking death? If he's seeking death, we can't save him. Let's just go back. The two jade eyes rolled back down the mountain, and they suddenly stopped. Master said that he would beat us back into our original forms if we don't catalyze these medicine energy. We will die if we go back now. They rolled back again, and jumped up the mountain, until they reached God execution stage. Moon Jade Eye opened the sack, and took out a spirit pill. The two eyes executed Qi of pure yin and Qi of pure yang to catalyze it. After catalyzing over a dozen pills and destroying 7 to 8 pills, these two Jade Eyes got slightly impatient. Son Jade Eye suggested, why don't we catalyze them all at once? We'll tell Master that we have catalyzed them all. Okay. The two Jade Eyes opened their eyes wide in excitement. Two beams of light hit the sack. Ling Yuxiu was guarding beside First Ancestor Human Emperor, and she was getting slightly worried. It has been a long time since Qin Mu had transformed into a shadow and entered First Ancestor's divine treasures. Now that he still hasn't resurfaced, she didn't know if Qin Mu could successfully save First Ancestor. In addition to that, First Ancestor's aura was gradually becoming weaker. It was apparent that his injuries were becoming worse. Suddenly, Ling Yuxiu stood up. She stared hard at Pan Gongtso, who was walking over. Pan Gongtso's face was full of smiles, sauntering as he approached her. Princess Xiao, how is First Ancestor? I'm also skilled in the art of healing, so maybe I can help. Ling Yuxiu grabbed the small case and calmly said, you don't need to worry. Cowherd Boy's medical expertise is much better than yours. Kai Shi walked from the other direction. He said calmly, Lassie, little friend Qin's medical expertise sure is profound, but no matter how great it is, he cannot deliver the medicinal energy to the Celestial Palace. If things drag out, First Emperor Human Emperor will die for sure. Only I can enter his Celestial Palace, and only I can save him. Clack. Ling Yuxiu opened a small gap in the case, and Kai Shi's heart tightened. He became nervous as he stopped in his tracks. He pulled back his muscles, ready to fly far away to avoid God Execution mysterious knife. His other head looked at Pan Gongtso. Pan Gongtso then walked forward and stomped on the herb garden. He stepped all over the herbs and crushed them all. His aim was to distract Ling Yuxiu. There were many herbs that Qin Mu had planted to treat First Ancestor Human Emperor. If they were all destroyed, First Ancestor's injuries would be untreatable. Once Ling Yuxiu became distracted, Kai Shi could then take the chance to steal the small case. When that time comes, they would be able to do anything to First Ancestor Human Emperor, Ling Yuxiu, and Qin Mu. Veins popped up on Ling Yuxiu's forehead as she continued to stare at Kai Shi. She gritted her teeth, and she said in a low voice, Grandmaster, you are also a descendant of the races that founding emperor had left behind. Don't you have any gratitude? Pan Gongtso was slightly stunned. With a smile that didn't reach his eyes, he said, I'm then the fiendish person that the world wants to get rid of. If First Ancestor Human Emperor knows there would be a descendant like me back then, you would definitely not save us at all. I'm not thankful at all. Kai Shi threw a glance at him, and Pan Gongtso hesitated. He didn't continue to walk forward. Pan Gongtso went on to say, I've poisoned millions and millions of clansmen on the prairie. So how would I be thankful just for that righteous deed First Ancestor Human Emperor had done? I won't. Kai Shi threw him another glance. Pan Gongtso gritted his teeth and walked. Ling Yuxiu's gaze was still fixed on Kai Shi, and she shouted sternly, Aren't you afraid that I'll use the God Execution knife to kill you? Pan Gongtso's expression was complicated. He walked closer from behind her and slowly stretched his hands to grab the case from her hand. Ling Yuxiu couldn't endure this any longer. She kicked backward, hitting Pan Gongtso's head and sending him sprawling across the ground. He promptly fainted. Useless thing. Kai Shi was furious. Right after Ling Yuxiu kicked, he took this chance to kill her. Without any warning, First Ancestor sat up, alarming Kai Shi. He immediately turned and vanished into the forest. I will save you. First Ancestor Human Emperor's complexion was sallow. He said softly, at that time, no matter how evil you are, I will save you. That's because you are the last of the human race. Pangong Tso opened his eyes and flipped to kneel in front of First Ancestor. He kowtowed several times heavily, and his body turned into a wisp of black smoke and left right away. Ling Yuxiu finally relaxed. She sat on the ground as her legs buckled. Looking at the direction where Pangong Tso had vanished, she said in a low voice, "My kick couldn't have knocked him out. Could he still have some humanity left?" At this moment, Qin Mu flew out from the heart of First Ancestor Human Emperor's brows. He said, "Humanity. He might still have just a bit." First Ancestor was still very weak. Even though the two huge eyeballs were very unreliable, they had actually succeeded in catalyzing all of the spirit pills in one go. The injuries of First Ancestor Human Emperor's primordial spirit had been lessened, and he was able to escape from the God Execution knife on the God Execution stage. Of course, Qin Mu didn't know about this. If he did, he would definitely teach these two eyeballs a lesson. First Ancestor stood up weakly, his body swaying. The injuries on his corporeal body were already healed, but his primordial spirit and celestial palace still had severe injuries. Luckily, his life was no longer in danger. Kai Shi's injuries are lighter than mine. His abilities are far above mine at the moment. First Ancestor Human Emperor said in a weak voice, "I'm afraid I can't protect you." Qin Mu was unconcerned. Even if he knows you don't have many abilities, he won't dare to lay his hands on you. He doesn't dare to take a risk. When your injuries are fully healed, he won't dare to risk himself even more. First Ancestor Human Emperor shook his head. "I'm not worried about him. It's the floating world. Are you confident that you can heal me before we enter the floating world?" Qin Mu hesitated. He indeed didn't have the confidence that he could heal First Ancestor in a few months. The primordial spirit's injuries were extremely tricky, and he had no experience when it comes to injuries of the Celestial Palace. Furthermore, there weren't too many spirit herbs on this broken ship. Even though there was a variety of herbs in his Daotai sack, he still lacked some crucial herbs. If he wanted to heal First Ancestor, he had to go to the floating world and see if he was able to buy enough spirit herbs. 3 forms of overturning heaven deals too much damage to you. You cannot use it from now on, Qin Mu instructed. First Ancestor Human Emperor shook his head. "I don't want to let Heavenly Teacher think I'm still an army deserter." Qin Mu was stunned. Just because he was once an army deserter, he had to carry the foul reputation of being an army deserter forever. It was indeed a little cruel. The reason why Heavenly Teacher said you are an army deserter might not be because you have run away from that battle. Qin Mu thought over it, and he deduced Saint Woodcutter's intention. After you have become an army deserter, you continued to run for 20,000 years, and never once did you face reality. You went into seclusion and shunned away from the mortal world. You wasted your time away, and didn't work hard for anything or do anything successfully. You even didn't teach your disciple properly. He won't bear a grudge just because you have run away once. It's how you have run away for 20,000 years that he cannot forgive. First Ancestor Human Emperor fell into a daze. Qin Mu didn't speak again. He looked at the herb garden that had been trampled. These herbs could still be grown with Earth Eon creation technique, but he still lacked numerous herbs. His Daotai sack bulged here and there as the 2 jade eyes rolled around. Qin Mu let out these 2 jade eyes, and they landed on the ground. They put their scrawny hands on the sides of their eyes, and walked around to examine their surroundings. Brother. There's a babe. Moon Jade Eye threw a glance at Ling Yuxiu, and said excitedly, "It's one of the 2 babes that had found us." The 2 eyeballs lighted up, as they ogled Ling Yuxiu relentlessly. When they had their fill, only then were they satisfied. Ling Yuxiu examined these 2 eyeballs in astonishment. She carefully walked around them, then stopped beside Qin Mu. 10,000 Spirit Nature Technique. Qin Mu nodded. Why have you awakened their spirit? Ling Yuxiu said in a low voice, these two eyeballs are very powerful. Even ordinary gods can't block their gaze. If they rebelled, we can't restrain them at all. By the way, do they know they are very powerful? Qin Mu shook his head and whispered, they don't know. They are still worried, I would smack them back into their original forms. Ling Yuxiu let out a sigh of relief. She recalled something and asked again, do they know they are the eyes of a Daotai? After you've awakened the chest, he was like a Daotai that likes to eat anything. He even treated the dragon Qilin as a corpse and ate him several times. Qin Mu shook his head. I don't know as well. They are very innocent. The two jade eyes rolled here and there as they chattered. They didn't know what they were gossiping about. Ling Yuxiu approached them and said with a smile, from now on, you will be called Xiao Yang, and you will be called Xiao Yin, okay? Okay. The two jade eyes said in unison, babe. This video will end here.